These are live people that are put on a table, forcefully their organs cut out of their bodies while alive. No anesthetic, and the actual transplantation surgery is the murder. Taken out, their cornea is taken out, their livers, their pancreas, just everything extracted while they're alive, while they are screaming, and cutting out their organs. And the reason why is because the fresher the organs, the more money they can make.
Hey friends, thank you so much for tuning in. You know how much we appreciate it. It's time to talk about a very, very serious topic. The topic is organ harvesting. You already know from Q, you already know from Pizzagate and Pettigate that human trafficking worldwide is an epidemic. But did you know that organ harvesting is as well? In my video that I made just a few weeks ago titled "The World Must Know, Pure Evil," I made it clear that more than 18,000 Syrians have had their organs harvested since 2011. These people are kidnapped and they're stripped of their organs when they reach Turkish territories. In return for making that video, YouTube has made it age restricted. They don't want this information getting out there. Why is that? And did you know that the plague of organ harvesting is even worse in China? In fact, China carries out more organ transplant surgeries than any country besides the U.S., which begs the question, where the heck are all the organs coming from in the United States? We're going to dig into this with Mitchell Nicholas Gerber. He's an entrepreneur and activist from Johannesburg, South Africa, who's dedicated over 17 years to help expose one of the most brutal persecutions and human rights atrocities in modern history, the Chinese Communist regime in China mandating forced live organ harvesting of hundreds of thousands of Falun Gong practitioners, Tibetan Buddhists, Muslims, and Christians. It must end, and the world must know. Mitchell joins us right now. Mitchell, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to listen about this serious topic, a new form of evil that is so systematic and is so dire, and will definitely shock you to the bone after hearing about this.
Well, Mitchell, I appreciate you reaching out. I think you reached out to me after I put my video out there about Syrian organ harvesting. It is an absolute plague. It's crimes against humanity. And guys, Mitchell's website is stoporganharvesting.org. Mitchell, I want to ask you something before we talk specifically about the horror of organ harvesting in China. How could it be possible that the United States is carrying out more organ transplant surgeries than China, when you and I both know now that China has harvested well over 50,000 organs from Falun Gong practitioners over the past decade or so? So what's going on here? Where would you like to begin? We should all be very, very concerned and appalled about this topic.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, when I first came to know about this in 2006, after David Kilgour and David Mattis, two renowned esquires, honorable esquires from Canada, one the former Secretary of State of the Canadian Affairs Office of the of Asian Pacific in the Canadian Parliament, and David Mattis, an international human rights lawyer, who actually sat down with me in London about 2 or 3 weeks ago with Ethan Gutman, an award-winning China investigative writer and a nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize of 2018. They shocked the world with their investigations and their allegations into forced organ harvesting, where the communist regime, the Chinese communist regime, this very demonic, mutated regime that has controlled China for the last 50 plus years, rounded up hundreds and thousands of Falun Gong practitioners and others, have sent them to state-mandated hospitals, at least 800 to 1,000, and 36 death camps in and around China, cutting out their organs while alive, forcefully without any anesthetic. Their organs then sold as the healthiest organs in the world. The bodies then burned in the boiler room ovens to conceal the evidence of in the hospitals. And this has been going on for the last 18 plus years. And after months of investigations, including undercover interviews with doctors throughout 12 provinces in China, David Kilgour mentioned that we have come to the regrettable conclusion that these allegations are true, that they believe they are true. They have received not too much press in the mainstream media because of the Chinese communist regime's economic pressure. But this is going on specifically, Sean and everybody, against a spiritual movement called the Falun Gong. It's an ancient traditional mind and body spiritual practice. And I can share with you, if you would like, what and why the communist regime has targeted Falun Gong.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear that story too, because the communist movement doesn't allow for spirituality. They don't want Christianity. They don't want anything having to do with believing in a higher power. So we can definitely talk about that angle. But I want to just play this soundbite here. You mentioned David Mattis and Ethan Gutman. Let's hear in their own words about this problem of organ harvesting in China. This comes from the Persecution of Falun Gong, the official English version here on YouTube. Listen to this.
We've been asked to investigate allegations that there has been harvesting of organs of Falun Gong in China. Our bottom line conclusion, after considering everything as best we could, was that the allegations are true.
I began conducting comprehensive interviews with medical professionals, Chinese law enforcement personnel, and over 50 refugees from the Laogai system. But I estimate that 65,000 Falun Gong were murdered for their organs from 2000 to 2008.
All right, guys, so let that sink in. You might be asking, this doesn't really affect me. Why should I care? Well, think about it. Where are these organs going? The answer is people from Asia, people from the EU, and people from the United States are flying in to China and getting organs, getting liver transplants, kidney transplants. And what it means is that when you or somebody does this and flies to China where you're promised an organ, over a 3-week stay in China, somebody in one of these prisons is being tissue sampled and blood type sampled to find a match and then executed. So Mitchell, jump back in at any point here, but I just think the practice is absolutely pure evil, as Q has described. There's so much pure evil going on this planet. I'm not sure how to stop it. The best we can do, I suppose, is to expose it. But do tell us why the practitioners of Falun Gong are being persecuted and having their organs harvested.
Certainly. No, thank you for promoting this and allowing me to expose this. The reason, everybody, 3 reasons why Falun Gong, which is an ancient Chinese spiritual discipline in the Buddhist tradition, and it's pronounced Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa. It consists of moral teachings, a meditation, and 4 gentle exercises that are truly unique and a highly effective way to improve your health and energy levels. And when people in China start to practice this, and I've personally practiced this, I've loved martial arts, I've loved yoga, tai chi. It's a type of Chinese qigong or spiritual practice that incorporates 5 simple exercises and meditation and the universal principles of truthfulness and compassion and tolerance. Falun Gong became the life force of China, where 1 out of every 12 Chinese national citizens, from the highest Politburo members of the government to military generals, to professors, to business executives, directors, to teachers, to the peasant class, to more than upper half of middle class society were practicing these particular exercises, Falun Gong. And this practice grew so quickly and so large to become the largest practice in China between 1992 and 1998, outnumbering the number of Chinese members in the Communist Party by 50 million people. That already made the communist dictator and the military dictator Jiang Zemin, who is the evil head at that time of the communist regime, and his gang of scoundrels very nervous, jealous, and hateful that he couldn't control this many people. So that's why he outlawed it. Second of all, the ideology of Falun Gong, believing in compassion and truthfulness and tolerance, considering people. There was a 1999 report from a Chinese government official that said that to U.S. News and Report that Falun Gong was saving millions and millions of dollars in terms of healthcare costs, reducing suicide rates. The productivity rates in the factories were going up. The moral ethics and moral fiber of its citizens were increasing. Everything was benefiting. Even the Chinese government praised Falun Gong for its extraordinary honorary benefits and vitality that it was giving to the people of China. But because of the jealousy and the hatefulness of Jiang Zemin, the former president of China, he tried to crush it in three months, actually, in 1999, created a Gestapo-type office called the 610 Office that was created on June 10th, 1999, just like the Nazis did with the stormtroopers and the Gestapo in the Holocaust in Nazi Germany, that sits right on top of the government system of China, controlling the economic, social, and political spectrums to control and wipe out Falun Gong and kill them for their organs. And this has been going on for the last 18 plus years. And with Falun Gong, because the organs, this is the third reason why it was banned. First, because it became the largest practice. Second, because of the ideology clashing with the tyrannical, narcissistic, evil, just murderous regime and despotic nature and demonic nature of the communist regime. And the third reason is because the organs become really healthy. So when you practice the Falun Gong exercises, the energy channels unblock, the blood circulates freely, and the organs become incredibly healthy. We have received so many health awards, well, the practice has, and the teacher, Mr. Lee, has. 5-time nominated Nobel Peace Prize, has received the European Parliament's Peace Prize as well, or nominated, and because of the health benefits. So this was a targeting, systematic campaign by the communist regime, by the former president of the Chinese communist regime, to send hundreds, to scapegoat Falun Gong as some sinister cult, which is absolutely ridiculous. There is no such cult. There's no money involved in Falun Gong. There's no hierarchy. There's no forcefulness. But this was the campaign of terror orchestrated by the communist regime to demonize and slander Falun Gong as some sinister cult, some terrorist group, in order to turn public opinion against it, and then send hundreds and thousands of Falun Gong practitioners and others to state-mandated hospitals all around China, to this day continuing, and killing them for their organs and selling their organs as the healthiest organs in the world. And may I just share as well, in 2006 there was a report by a military doctor who came forward and exposed that, according to the source in terms of this military doctor, captive Falun Gong adherents are shipped in sealed freight trains to and from camps, with as many as 5,000 being transferred in a single day. He said, "I witnessed a specifically dispatched freight train transferring over 7,000 Falun Gong practitioners in a trip from Tianjin City to Jilin area," the source recalled. "It ran at night, guarded by the Chinese army. Everyone on board was handcuffed to specially designed handrails atop the ceiling like rotisserie chickens." So this is a new form of evil, systematically established, state-sanctioned, state-mandated. You've heard about organ harvesting around the world, but this is a form of evil where 1/4 of China's gross domestic profit, ladies and gentlemen, has been used to eradicate Falun Gong, kill them for their organs, and completely conceal the facts from the Western world in order to sell these organs and make money off them.
It's just so disturbing, and guys, I'll play some of the video here of these Falun Gong practitioners in parks all across China when it was allowed for them to practice their spiritual movements and practice gathering together. It was the most peaceful movement. Can you imagine such a movement spreading across the United States in the inner cities where we see so much violence? You got to remember, these are human beings, and they were peaceful. And they've been absolutely targeted, and in a response to a 2014 resolution on organ harvesting by the U.S. House of Representatives, a Chinese embassy spokesperson said that China requires written consent from organ donors and declared that the, quote, so-called organ harvesting from death row prisoners is totally a lie fabricated by Falun Gong, end quote. Can you even imagine? Well, guess what? In 2016, a report was issued that claimed China is still engaged in the widespread and systematic harvesting of organs from prisoners. Now, let me ask you, Mitchell, I mentioned at the beginning of this interview that China carries out more organ transplant surgeries than any other country on earth except for the United States. Where are all the organs coming from for the transplant surgeries being done in this country? It's a question that deserves to be asked. Do you have any insights on that?
Absolutely. Well, at least in America, there is a consensual basis. We're talking about forced organ harvesting. The military doctors are involved. The highest ranking officials are involved. This kind of organ harvesting that is existing in China, this is a state-mandated forced organ harvesting. And when David Kilgore and David Mattis, as well as Ethan Gutman, did a congressional hearing in 2016, they have brought to light with a lot of the congressmen and the House of Representatives who have passed resolutions to urge the communist regime to stop forced organ harvesting. Now, the organ transplants in America, as far as I know, are consensual basis, meaning that there is a choice to be had. There are doctors that are doing organ transplants, but they are consented. Whereas in China, they are forced, where you have just heard from the military doctor's testimony, and another doctor, which I will share with, who I was meeting in London with, Dr. Enver, who actually bared witness and did a forced organ harvesting forced by the Chinese government, and his testimony is shocking as well. Especially with children who are harvested in China as well, that these Falun Gong practitioners are rounded up, forcefully blood tested in cattle cars, just like what happened to the Jews in Nazi Germany, and sent to these state-mandated hospitals in 36 death camps and killed, basically cut open while alive, like lobsters in a tank. So nothing like this is going on in the States, I mean, compared to what is going on in China, anywhere in the world, actually. And this is why when the world wakes up to what is going on, Sean, and everybody that's listening, this is going to stir the world. And we have all the evidence. No one can debate what is going on. The communist regime has been covering it up. They have been bribing a lot of the governing bodies. The Vatican has aided and abetted the communist regime. A lot of the NGOs, a lot of the governing bodies, even the transplantation societies around the world and the medical associations around the world are complicit in aiding and abetting and keeping quiet with the communist regime for money and political pressures. But a good website and a board of Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting, DAFOH.org, has countered this and destroyed all the smoke and mirrors and all these lies and deceptions that the communist regime is covering up. The communist regime in China, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, this demonic specter, has targeted Falun Gong to kill them for their organs, as well as the Uyghur Muslims, the House Christians, and the Tibetan Buddhists for the last 18 years now, and have actually created databases. Enver Tohti, who's a Chinese surgeon who came with me into the briefing in Westminster Abbey about 2 weeks ago with David Kilgore and Ethan Gutman, shared his testimony that there's actually something called China Modern, where China wants to globalize its organ harvesting database to bring more to the United States. That's pretty much what I can also add to your question. So the complicitness of these medical associations and these governing bodies, they need to wake up and they need to stand on the right side of destiny, because they cannot cover this up, because this is a form of evil that is so shocking and so atrocious that when this actually occurs, there is going to be serious call to action, like the Nuremberg trials, to bring this kind of evil and these evildoers to justice, especially like the body world exhibits, where this German fellow who created the body worlds, where you could see around the world there are bodies of Falun Gong practitioners in different kinds of
the plasticized body part,
yes,
the bodies where you, yes, I've seen that.
Yes, those are actually Falun Gong practitioners who have been killed, plasticized, and then sold off to the body exhibitions. And, Sean, to understand how organ harvesting could happen in China, it's crucial to understand that there is no limit to how far the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, will go to wipe out someone or something. And when the persecution started against Falun Gong in July 1999, the Chinese regime called Falun Gong the biggest threat to national security since Tiananmen Square 10 years before. And today they are even more terrified than ever. We've also obtained official Communist Party documents recently issued, and they have stated that the competition against Falun Gong is the principal means of competition for the hearts and minds of the masses. Now, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, when the persecution first began, Jiang Zemin, was seeking a way to consolidate his own power while also eliminating the largest movement of thought in recent Chinese history. So to achieve this, he knew he needed one thing more than anything: hate. And he used this in a self-immolation staged event on 2001, burning or forcing 5 people and a little girl to set themselves on fire in Tiananmen Square and say, this is what Falun Gong practitioners do. They're evil, they're a cult, they're terrorists, they burn themselves. And this seriously damaged the credibility of Falun Gong, because when you are forcefully brainwashed and targeted by propaganda 16, 17, 18, 24 hours a day and on your state-run media, you will definitely be able to be brainwashed. And the communist regime has its way to deceive the Chinese people, as it has always in this abnormal society where there's no freedom of human rights, there's no freedom of spirituality, there's no freedom of independent thought. So Falun Gong was targeted, and it was very easy to turn public opinion against it. But there has been a debunking of this so-called Hollywood-style staged event that the communist regime put on to demonize Falun Gong and call their practitioners crazy in order to turn public opinion against them, to kill them for their organs later on down the line, called false fire. And your viewers and your audience can look it up on YouTube, called False Fire. And one more thing I might add, for those who are avid readers and really want to know about what's behind the Red Wall of China, there is a publication that was published by the Epoch Times in New York City. Actually, it was translated by from the largest independent newspaper in the world, a Chinese newspaper outside of China called Dachuen. This publication definitely exposes the communist regime and how evil communism is. It's called the 9 Commentaries on the Communist Party, and it's a free publication at NINE commentaries.com, www.9commentaries.com. So people should look that up as well, specifically.
Yeah, thank you for that. And, you mentioned state-run media brainwashing in China. We have a version of that in this country, too. It's called CNN. And there are many that continue to be brainwashed by the official government talking points. Well, actually, at this point, it's false talking points of the left, primarily coming nonstop all day long from CNN. But, hey, look, the reason I asked you about the number of transplants being done in this country and where are all the organs coming from, it's because we know the organ harvesting issue exploded. The transplant surgeries exploded in 1999 and 2000 in China. And
Yes.
Now I'm understanding that in 2015 in the United States, organ transplants exceeded 30,000 operations for the first time annually, according to data from the Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network. Now, the reason I bring that up is because you mentioned that organ harvesting in this country is consensual. Well, that's certainly true if you're going to donate a kidney. You can't survive donating your liver. You can't donate
100%.
your heart. And the question needs to be asked, where are all of these organs coming from? Because the numbers don't add up. Now, I understand people check the donor box on their driver's license, and should you get into a terrible accident, maybe you're going to donate your organs. But I don't know how the numbers add up to 30,000. And given all of the organ harvesting we've seen now since 2011 in Syria and all of this on-the-record organ harvesting going on in China, is it beyond the possibility that organs are being transferred imported from these nations to patients waiting in this country? And they might be patients that came here from different countries, from the EU, to get top-notch medical procedures done here in the United States. But that doesn't mean the organs are all coming from the United States, does it?
Absolutely, that's you nailed it. All the organs are coming from China, and that is why there's such an increase. Because when you can get an organ on a specified date, Sean, within a week, you are definitely going to find that your organ transplantation tourism skyrockets in different countries around the world. And there are only 4 medical associations around the world that have banned, only 4 countries, medical associations who have banned organ transplantation from China after realizing and understanding about what is going on with Falun Gong and how they're being killed like lobsters and raw material in China. And they are, surprisingly, Israel, the Knesset, and Jacob Levy, the president of the Transplantation Society of Israel, and the Sanhedrin, the Rabbinic Council, have banned organ tourism and actually placed into law that any Israeli citizen tries to go to China, they will be illegally dealt with in terms of their insurance policies. They will basically cut off their policies, because that's how serious it has become. And now, Israel has been a little bit auspicious in terms of organ transplant. I've heard a lot of comments about that, but this is literally has been done in terms of, and it's a diverse political spectrum, Israel, obviously, but that's the first country that banned organ tourism from China. You also have Taiwan, a courageous country that is in the jaws of the red dragon. Third is Spain. And fourth is Italy now coming to the forefront. These are the 4 countries that have banned organ tourism from China. And there's a very interesting article that Ethan Gutmann, the nominee of the Nobel Peace Prize of 2018, shared from a reporter of the Vision Times in 2015. He actually wrote the book, The Slaughter, which I truly implore your readers or your audience and your listeners to read. The Slaughter from Ethan Gutmann, also Bloody Harvest from David Kilgour and David Mattis, the creme de la creme of evidence, the Kilgour and Mattis report, KILGOUR-Mattis report. That can be, it's a free PDF and it's been published free online. Ethan Gutmann was asked, what was your reaction when you heard of the reports of organ harvesting? Skeptical. I'm always skeptical when I'm on the threshold of a new investigation. What changed your mind? As I said, the Kilgour-Mattis report, the phone calls into Chinese hospitals by Falun Gong investigators. But there is no substitute for personally cross-examining witnesses. One of my first subjects was a peasant woman, a Falun Gong practitioner, who had done serious time in a labor camp. Along with detailed accounts of torture, she briefly mentioned the physical exam. Yet under intense questioning, the exam sounded like it was administered in a hospital turned upside down. The only possible medical rationale was to assess whether she could be exploited for her kidneys, her liver, her corneas, and perhaps her heart, the retail organs. Meanwhile, the woman was becoming increasingly annoyed with me. I mean, she had been tortured for God's sake. Her beliefs had been jeered and mocked, her family ruined. Why was this stupid white guy so interested in blood tests? She did not recognize the physical examination as having any importance. Of course, to me, this was investigative catnip. And I think that tells a big story.
Well, let me ask you this. The communist regime is certainly as frightening as the hardcore criminal left in the United States. And when I say that, I'm referring to specifically people like the Clintons, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Podestas, the Clinton body count, all of the unexplained deaths that surround the Clintons over the past decades, always ruled a suicide. You're doing God's work here. Has the communist regime threatened you in any way? Have there been repercussions at all for your activism?
Absolutely, and actually you're very, very right about the radical communist left, especially the Antifa terrorist movement, all play-by-play books, play-by-play out of the communist regime, the political correctness. You have seen a huge influence of communist China into the States, and I have been threatened because of my work, and but Sean, I believe that to fail to support the good and to fail to expose evil is unacceptable. I've had to sit down with the FBI. I've had death threats. My family has been threatened through the communist regime's tactics of bullying. My laptop has been broken into. My car has been broken into. But I've been blacklisted from China. But I pat myself on the back because you know what? It means that I've done God's work. Like you said, I've dented, and I've made them scared that I have exposed so much, and I'm so grateful to be coming on your show to share about this and share with your listeners. And what's most important is why do we care? Why is this important to know about? We have so much going on in our lives and so much busyness, but why? Because every single human being breathes the same breath, bleeds the same blood, and has an organ the same as everyone else of the Falun Gong in China. So I implore your listeners and I implore your audience to read David Kilgour and David Mattis' Bloody Harvest and the Kilgour-Mattis report. Read Ethan Gutmann's book, The Slaughter. Go to Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting, DAFOH.org. Go to StopOrganHarvesting.org. Look up the 9 commentaries on the Communist Party. forced organ harvesting in China. And I wanted to share also Miss World Anastasia Lin, Miss World Canada of 2015 and 2016, has also been threatened. She was denied entry into the Miss World beauty pageant in China just recently because she practices Falun Gong and her father as well practices. And she's made it her duty to use her crown that she's won through 2015 and 16 beauty pageants and has become Miss World 2015 and 16 to expose this. So we're all working together, and it's peaceful. I don't get any recognition for this. Leave me no name, seeking no reward. David Kilgore, David Mattis, Enver Totti, the doctor, and Ethan Gutman, as well as Miss Anastasia Lin, have been going around the world in 50 different countries to expose this. And we won't stop until this is exposed. And that's why I'm grateful to be on your show, Sean. I really am.
I'm very grateful that you reached out and that you came on. I mean, look, the bottom line at SGT Report and in the alternative truth media in the United States and around the world at this point, Mitchell, is we want to expose what Q calls pure evil. And there is pure evil on this planet. It's the type of evil I don't think we've ever seen before. Certainly throughout human history there's been evil, but I don't know if it's ever been on this mass scale with organ harvesting, with human trafficking, with child sex trafficking, with satanic ritual abuse. This stuff is the stuff of nightmares, and it needs to be exposed, and the perpetrators need to be brought to justice. And I just want to wrap things up. You mentioned the radicalism of the communist Marxists and the leftists in this country. I want to remind people that it was FBI agent Larry Grothwall who infiltrated the Weather Underground and found out that Bill Ayers and his cohorts had a plan to take over the U.S. government and re-educate everybody to the ways of communism. And according to those people in the Weather Underground, those who couldn't be quote-unquote re-educated would be taken to camps. And by their own estimation, 25 million Americans would have to be terminated, executed. Does that sound familiar? It sounds exactly like what's going on in communist China today. It's an absolute horror show, and we're going to continue to do everything we can to expose it. And God willing, these evil people around the world, especially in the United States, people like Hillary Clinton, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, John and Tony Podesta, these people need to be brought to justice. And I'm going to give you the final word, Mitchell. Any encouragement or words of motivation for our listeners and viewers?
Absolutely. And to add to your point, that's why I implore you to read the 9 commentaries on the Communist Party. You can also watch it on YouTube. It's all free. The 9 commentaries on the Communist Party will blow your mind about what's going on in China, exactly what you just said about how Communist China has infiltrated in the West. One more thing, Ethan Gutman, and I think this definitely stands to reason about what's going on and why it's so important. What do you say to those people who still doubt that organ harvesting has occurred or is occurring on a large scale in China, especially through the use of Falun Gong practitioners? And Ethan Gutman, again, the writer of The Slaughter and the nominee of the Nobel Peace Prize of 2018, he mentioned, the dogs bark, the caravan moves on. Look, The Slaughter, my book, has been out for a year. That's plenty of time for serious reviewers to question my conclusions. I can't think of one who has. Even the South China Morning Post, which obviously had to give a critical review given their financial relationship with the mainland, didn't dare. And I stand by every footnote, every interview. I don't begrudge anyone the right to doubt. As I say in my book, these are serious allegations, toxic allegations. But no one has the right to dismiss the allegations without actually reading the corpus of work that has been published. The Slaughter, Bloody Harvest, and State Organs, not to mention all the investigative reports that have been authored by the Epoch Times out of New York, the World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong, and DAFOH.org, Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting. This investigation started in 2006. Yet the volume of investigative work is only increasing. You want to comment? Hit the books. If someone is too lazy to read about the subject or just doesn't care enough about Chinese atrocities to bother, perhaps they should keep silent. So everybody, I urge you, go check out the website, stoporganharvesting.org. Talk to your colleagues. If you're a business CEO, talk to your colleagues about doing business in China. And think again, not to invest there. because your money is adding to the atrocity of human life. If you are a professor and listen to Sean's show, the SGT report, which is an amazing report, by the way. I followed you. I'm an avid reader, and I take my hat off to someone like you, sir, who has got the courage to stand day in and day out as a testament to courage, to sanctity, and to benevolence, and knows what the right side of destiny truly is. And if you are a professor, reach out to your students. Allow me to come into your classroom and talk to you about this. Even a family member, talk about this and share the links with your family, your friends, your colleagues, your associates, even strangers on the street. And thanks again, Sean, for allowing me to come on and share about the persecution of Falun Gong, to uphold the dignity of it, and to stop this organ harvesting atrocity.
No, it's my absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for your kind words. I very much appreciate it. They're not all that deserved. It's just, I'm always surprised that so many of our friends, neighbors, and colleagues refuse to stand up, refuse to get educated about what's really going on in the world, and refuse to take part in our republic, because that's the only way we're going to take our country back from these maniacal, evil people that want to ruin our country and, frankly, want to destroy humanity. I mean, look no further than the Georgia Guidestones, folks. They want to reduce the population of the world to 500 million people. All right?
100%.
It's time to wake up. And Mitchell, you mentioned your book, The Slaughter. Can you tell people how they might get the book?
Yes, absolutely. Well, the Kilgore and Mattis report, that can be downloaded free of charge. It's a PDF report. In 2006, it was published. Then David Kilgore and David Mattis updated their version. You can get that just by typing in Kilgore Mattis report, David Kilgore, Mattis, David Kilgore and David Mattis, the Kilgore and Mattis report. Also, Ethan Gutman, his book, The Slaughter, you can get that on Kindle or Amazon. You can also go to Ethan Gutman's website. Just type in ETHAN, Ethan, and Gutman with 2 N's, GUTMANN. His book is also available there. You can go to stoporganharvesting.org and read the reports. You can go to Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting to sign a petition to share your voice. And I know that a petition, what can a petition do, many people can say, but it's like the pen is more mightier than the sword. It's like signing a check. It's like signing a will to your family. The petition is energetically positioning your soul, your heart on the right side of destiny. So please go to these websites, sign the petition. It does help because it shows that you are supporting Falun Gong in terms of the dignity of it, the dignity of the Tibetan Buddhists, the dignity of the Uyghur Muslims, the dignity of the house Christians that are being persecuted, to stop this, and also you are supporting to stop this persecution. So yes, read the book. Again, the 9 commentaries on the Communist Party, an excellent publication, a very long one, a very detailed one, but a worthy one at that. They will blow your mind away in terms of what is communism, how evil the Chinese communist regime is, and how this demon must be stopped for what it's doing in the world and how it has infiltrated into the normal civilizations. Because, folks, like you said, Sean, the eagle and the dragon, we are in a war of the minds, the war of the hearts, and the war of the souls. But mark my words, ladies and gentlemen, within the next 3 to 5 years, the communist regime in China, the source of this evil in this world, the beast from the east, in Revelations, the red dragon, will collapse. And America will become more at peace. And you'll see the communist left in this country, in America, where I've been a citizen for 20 years, that poison will seep out and America will become normal again, will be at peace again. But because of the communist regime in China, this is the reason why everything is in complete chaos, especially with North Korea, the Middle East, Europe. All the source stems from China, but China the communist regime that controls China, the Chinese government and the Chinese people, are the masters of deception. They are like vampires. They are sucking the blood out of the Chinese people and out of the world. But very soon enough, this kind of evil will not last much longer.
Well, Mitchell, I absolutely love your passion, and I respect your eloquence, and you're so articulate. Thanks so much for your courage as well.
Thank you, Sean. God bless, and I hope to see you soon. I hope to come on again for an update.
Yeah, I look forward to that. And guys, in the meantime, visit stoporganharvesting.org. Our guest has been Mitchell Nicholas Gerber. And Nicholas, again, thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. For real news 24/7, do visit us at sgtreport.com. Check out thephaser.com, where I hand select videos you may find interesting on a daily basis, and the libertymill.com. Thanks for listening, guys. God bless. Bye-bye.
We have a demonic force that is taking over humanity, redesigning us, creating something else other than what it is to be human. There is no prior period of change that remotely resembles what humanity is about to experience.